Again, wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there are links in the description to the book, The Darkest Timeline, A World with No Future. Please give a big TIR round of applause to Bram Gieben. Ew.
What's up, Jason? How you doing?
I'm okay. Before we break into the book, I think we should continue this conversation we're having about the passing of, let's say, underground countercultural musical icon, maybe the avatar of the working class musician. How you can carve out a career in music. Steve Albini recently passed, surprisingly, of a heart attack.
Yeah,
And
that was a tough one for me. I think, like we were saying just before we came on air, he's kind of one of the last great countercultural figures of Generation X. One of the last really important figures from like hardcore scene. So there's a lot of legacy behind him, and I think, like I said before, I was probably one of those musicians who held on to a vain dream of one day recording with him, which obviously isn't going to happen now. I think about half a dozen of my friends posted the same thing on Facebook last night, saying that they'd wish they'd recorded with him, and of course, that was an achievable dream for a lot of musicians starting out. I think in his last years he worked with people like Page and Plant for a fairly big fee, but he always preferred working with a smaller band and kind of bringing out their potential. So yeah, I think he was definitely a great figure, and it's a vibe shift, isn't it? His passing.
It does. I didn't agree with a lot of things Albini said. I felt like he was the type of person that no one ever pushed back on anything. That being said, I think the music genres that I exist in are a better place with him in it. With his contributions, there's something to be said about being steadfast with your working class aesthetic. I have friends that went to Chicago. They saved up their money, went to Chicago to record with him. It was not an exorbitant amount of money. Recording in a studio, I would say in the last 20 years, is kind of ridiculous for a lot of people because you can do so much in a home studio, especially if you really learn how to wall off sound. If you have space, that's the big thing, right? Who has space? If you can't afford rent, you definitely can't afford a practice space to possibly record in. But the stories I heard about things he was able to do, methods. There's methods that he had for recording drums that my drummer that I played with in a band, Bitter Lake, was an engineer, and he was reading about it. We would use some of those methods as well. It's really sad. He speaks to a certain. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Repo Man.
Yeah, absolutely love that movie. Yep.
I feel like if the three of us watched Repo Man together, we'd probably have a 4-hour discussion post that movie.
Yeah.
About
that was one of the apocalypse movies where I kind of wasn't able to fit into the book, but it definitely has a space there for sure.
Well, look, you have to, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I slept on Repo Man. I kind of watched it years ago out of the corner of my eye while I was doing 12 other things. Just didn't get it. Recently, I sat down and watched it. I did that thing. I don't know if you do this when you're watching a movie. All devices away from me. I'm just going to watch it. I was blown away. I watched it again. Then I went looking for like academic articles on it to see if anybody had like parsed through. Because there was just things I didn't understand. It's like, I know there's a symbol in there somewhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You could be the guy that explains to us so much that's like kind of hard to explain in that movie. Why didn't it make your book?
I think because it's not technically a post-apocalypse. It didn't fall broadly into the category of dystopia, but that's not to say it won't fall into the bucket of another book. I mean, there are so many kind of like books that I put into the category. I discuss a little bit this category of, is reality real, that Philip K. Dick explored. And, it's very much like the theme of The Matrix and Nick Bostrom's simulation argument paper. So, that's the idea of awakening, right? Awakening from one level of reality into another, or having the scales taken off of your eyes and seeing reality as it is. So I think Repo Man plays with those ideas. So does like John Carpenter's They Live. Maybe there's more to be written on that kind of that moment of awakening. I think I tackle it in one chapter and talk a little bit about Philip K. Dick and his system of religion that was kind of revealed to him at a late part of his life, and then kind of that mythology, that theology became an obsession for him. So yeah, I think there's a lot of films in that category of kind of dystopian movies that are also about awakening. I've definitely got an interest in writing a bit more about those.
There's an interesting, because you say awakening, when you watch Repo Man, and I feel like the author director calls out the fallacy of the punk scene. This idea that this is the Great Rebellion. Because the gang, if you will, that he ditches to become a Repo Man is more Three Stooges than they are like Clockwork Orange. And I feel like that's how he saw the LA punk scene, which is kind of a very important scene in punk and hardcore music, because this is 1984 and that movie comes out. So he's got to be writing it, in 82, 83. They're definitely filming in 83. So I think maybe Darby Crash died by then from the germs, but you still have bands like Fear, X. Who else is coming out of that scene? From Southern California, Black Flag.
Yeah, what totally.
The Circle Jerks.
I don't know that scene as well as I should do. Like, maybe that's a whole level of the film that I hadn't considered. I think the thing that struck me about it the first time I saw it was, the technique that he uses when they're in the supermarket and he's going past all the products and it just says like beer.
Yeah, they're all generic.
Yeah. I thought that as an aspect of world building, like drawing attention to the fakeness of the world of the movie. That was definitely the aspect that appealed to me. And if you like read a lot of Philip K. Dick books, they're often about like reality or time decaying and the subjective experience of the narrator going through watching a world that's decaying. It's quite often the case that nobody else in the narrative is kind of clued into what's happening as those worlds decay or as reality becomes harder and harder to identify. So I thought, like, as a metaphor for capitalism, this hollow kind of like shop front reality, like sets that you could tell if you pushed they would fall over. That's one of the best movies out there for that, I think, as a metaphor for capitalism, for sure.
It definitely is. It's definitely a rejection of the American dream. And it took me a while to realize that's why all the cars are old. Because part of the American dream is the automobile and this freedom that we're supposed to get with the interstate system and highways, right? And the glorious suburb, and all the punks come from the suburb.
Yeah.
And these nihilistic punks. And yeah, you know what? Look, I don't want to take up all of your time.
We could do a follow-up episode just